name's Graham Newton, and I'm speaking today to Simon Hocquard, who's the Canzo's president and CEO, head of Airspace World events, just to try and give everybody the context of the event for this year, because obviously it's been a very volatile time. And perhaps we'll start with that, Simon. How do you manage airspace in these types of situations where we have ongoing conflicts in the Middle East, Russia and Ukraine still, and various other hotspots around the world? How difficult is it to manage airspace?
Well, first off, hi, Graham. Hi, everybody. Well, there's no doubt that geopolitics is having a significant impact on aviation. I mean, you've named them, but we've seen entire regions really transform overnight. The closure of Ukrainian and Russian airspace in 22 reshaped global traffic flows. Late last year, political activity forced rapid adaptation in Latin America, and obviously the tensions and the conflicts in the Middle East this year triggered widespread rerouting and many flight cancellations. Mostly, though, the traffic did not disappear. It shifted and intensified in different areas. And in these, I think there really are unprecedented times. We have witnessed extraordinary examples of individual ANSPs coping with quite significant change. With the Ukrainian airspace closure as an example, Azerbaijan, Azans handled more than 10,000 flights in just 10 days, and Hungary experienced 30% more overflights than before the tensions were in place. These weren't sort of incremental changes, they were structural and rapid shifts in how the global airspace system was used. And I suppose what through it all, ANSPs have done what they always do and have done is they adapt. Implementing real-time capacity adjustments and enhancing civil military calibration as it happens, sort of live really. And then they activate contingency plans in hours, not days or weeks leading up to an event. And none of those are small achievements. They are the result of a system that has learned, in some ways regrettably, learned how to respond under significant pressure.
So how do ANSPs, though, remain agile in these difficult times? What are the key factors there?
Well, there's loads of factors, I suppose, is the easiest answer, but staying agile and resilient isn't about one solution. You can't just do one thing. It's about building sort of layered adaptability across operations, technology, and also governance. Two areas, though, I think that can make the biggest difference, in my personal opinion, are digitalization and automation, that's one, and my favorite, collaboration. First and foremost, ANSP should invest in digitalization and automation. ATM's legacy systems are notoriously difficult and much harder to adapt quickly. Modern digital infrastructure improves responsiveness and enables faster recovery after and during disruptions. Secondly, though, they should deepen international collaboration. Airspace is inherently global, so resilience depends on coordination. ANSP should, and they often do, but should participate in regional frameworks like cross-border ATFM. They should be willing to share data and contingency plans with neighboring ANSPs and align procedures for crisis scenarios like sudden rerouting corridors. No single ANSP can handle these major geopolitical shocks all by themselves. Strengthen cross-border coordination will help prepare and best prepare, I suppose, neighboring ANSPs to absorb sudden traffic surges and help reduce those unnecessary, often but difficult bottlenecks in traffic.
And of course, it's not just ANSPs, that airlines, airports are involved as well. So how, as you mentioned there, your favorite word, collaboration, but how do we improve the collaboration across the ecosystem between ANSPs, airlines and airports?
Well, as always, more can be done. Lots of good examples, but more can be done. There's no doubt that collaboration across airports, airlines, ANSPs has definitely improved over the past decade. but it's uneven or it's inconsistent. It's often reactive and sometimes constrained by commercial or national interests. The gap isn't a lack of willingness. I really believe that. It's much more, I think, about its fragmented systems, its unaligned incentives, its decision making that often gets made in silos. You know, and these things often improve actually during crises. You know, when all those things are removed as if by magic and things happen. So how do we improve that outside of a crisis? We need to move from just coordination to true collaborative decision making. Now, we all heard about it. Many regions already use airport CDM, but it's not always fully integrated or consistently applied. It should be expanded into network-wide CDM, linking airports, airlines, and ANSPs all in real time. By sharing accurate turnaround, departure, and arrival data across all stakeholders, they can align decisions on delays and prioritization. In Europe, organizations like Eurocontrol have pushed this forward, but adoption and depth still varies. We also need to break down these data silos. Every stakeholder in the aviation ecosystem holds valuable operational data, but often they like to keep it proprietary. Our focus should be on developing common data standards and interoperable platforms, enabling secure, real-time data sharing through initiatives like SWIM that's been around for many, many years. But all those types of things lead to better collective decisions, especially during disruptions. Another key priority, I think, should be aligning incentives. We are often currently constrained by the singular views. What's optimal for one party, for me or for you, isn't always optimal for another one. Airlines prioritize cost and schedule adherence. Airports prioritize throughput and gate utilization. ANSPs prioritize airspace efficiency. We all prioritize safety, of course, but they're not necessarily linked. In the absence of aligned incentives, collaboration stalls. Performance frameworks based on network-wide efficiency, not individual KPIs, are fundamentally needed. And this is a gap that CANSO is trying to address with our ACDM performance framework. The idea is quite simple, but very powerful. If you want stakeholders to trust and act on the data, you need a common framework that defines how performance is measured, how it's reported, and benchmarked, and it needs to be aligned to shared, and shared is a really important word here, operational and strategic objectives.
Fantastic. Now, one area, of course, where I guess there is common ground, of course, is in sustainability, where all the aviation stakeholders are committed to an aspirational goal of net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Are we set to deliver that? And, how are the ANSPs doing and playing their part?
Tricky question. So I think the aviation's goal of net zero by 2050 is achievable, but it's massively challenging. It requires multiple levers working together, not just a single solution. Sustainable aviation fuels will deliver the majority of savings, as we all know. And technology like new aircraft will also contribute. We think around about a third, actually, to the goal. And then you've got operations and infrastructure, which includes ATM, and that's slated currently to contribute around 7 to 10%. So whilst it's not the biggest contributor, ATM can play a big role in the shorter term while we wait for SAF and new technology to come online. Now, given the importance of the role, the biggest impact ANSPs can have is through more efficient operations, more direct routings, reduced holding and delays, or reduced delays, and better flow management and sequencing. Now, are we on track as the ATM industry? Well, what's going well so far is the move towards continuous descent operations, free route airspace, and better flow management. Those three initiatives have shown measurable efficiency gains. But real gains, I think, are being impeded by our fragmented airspace and the fact that proven measures like trajectory-based operations and free route airspace are not being uniformly deployed. Benefits are being realized, but they are not but they're not fully realized system-wide. So what can ANSPs do to bridge that gap to net zero? I think to accelerate the deployment of proven measures like free route airspace is one, push cross-border airspace integration and stronger network management. And the third one is to use real-time shared data. I keep coming back to that shared data through initiatives like SWIM and collaborative decision-making. If we can do that, then we have a chance.
Another key component looking ahead, and something that's very important to Airspace World, of course, with the Tomorrow's Voices initiative, is how we're going to attract the talent we need. Traffic is, broadly speaking, predicted to double over the next couple of decades. Can we attract the talent we need in all the various disciplines, including in technology?
It's possible, but I don't think it's guaranteed. Across the globe, our talent pipeline simply isn't keeping pace with traffic growth, and there's no quick fix to this. You know, air traffic controllers take years to train with still fairly high failure rates for all the right reasons, actually. So scaling up is difficult, it's slow. There's also the demographic pressure, with a large cohort of experienced controllers and engineers retiring before 2050. You know, and I was trying to remember, you know, there was a big recruitment drive in the 90s, and that's showing my age, but a big recruitment drive during the 90s. And that sort of recruitment drive is now, you know, it's that bubble, that demographic bubble is moving across. So we can have more traffic and, in theory, fewer experienced staff. So can we close this gap? Yeah, we can, but only if we evolve. We do need to modernize training. We need to shorten time to qualification without compromising safety. We need to make greater use of simulation, AI-assisted learning, and modular progression. All those things we need to really access to help improve the situation. We also need to broaden the talent pool and target non-traditional candidates like people with STEM, gaming, or data backgrounds. That tactic is something the FAA is employing, for example, in an advertising campaign right now, currently. I think it also helps to focus on our purpose and not just on pay, as an example. We should emphasize our mission, safety, sustainability, global connectivity. This still resonates strongly with the younger generations. Also, I've mentioned before, we should focus on automation. Automation can help reduce the dependency on headcount. Decision support tools and digital towers can ease pressure on staffing. So it's not really a conclusion, but ANSPs can attract the talent they need, but not by doing more of the same. What's got us here won't get us where we need to get to. We do need to evolve and change.
And of course, you know, part of that change and not doing what we've done before is, you know, that there's sort of, I guess, a key foundation of the complete air traffic system, the CATS project and the CATS concept. Are you happy with the progress so far? And, you know, how will CATS tie all these things that we've talked about together and give us that vision of seamless skies by 2045?
Yeah, I'm super proud. I always have been, and I remain super proud of the work we're doing on CATS. And I've said this a lot, and I make no apologies for repeating it. It was really no mean feat, or was particularly difficult getting more than 80 companies from across the entire aviation ecosystem to align on a vision, a roadmap, and most recently, a concept of operations for the future. I think a defining moment recently was the global recognition the initiative received at the 42nd ICAO assembly. It was humbling, really, to see it supported by the global aviation ecosystem. This was unprecedented. It's unprecedented industry alignment. It was great too that the Commission encouraged the submission of proposals to reflect the CATS CONOPS in future revisions to the GAPMOC, the GAMP, and related initiatives. Never been seen before. So now we've got the framework and it's been widely accepted and praised, but all of that, if I look back, that's easy. It didn't feel easy at the time, but that's easy. We now really come to the difficult part, implementation. Now, we started that by taking the CONOPS on the road as we engage with the CANSO regions and global expert groups all over the world. This ongoing dialogue is important to understand regional priorities, identify implementation challenges, and make sure we're still aligned on the next steps and importantly, accelerate industry alignment. So massively exciting times ahead as the work groups start to make progress. As always, it will be massively hard work, but the rewards are high. Global system-wide transformation, which is absolutely needed to make sure that aviation is and remains successful now and into the future.
Simon, thanks very much.
Very good. Thank you.